7.
Time to go. Everybody ready?
Yep.
Ready or not? Here we go. Good evening, everybody.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Good evening, Mayor.
I'd like to call our meeting to order. Today is Wednesday, August 28th, and this is the agenda meeting for the town council. And for the record, the time is 7 p.m. We've had no one to sign up for our public comments tonight, so we'll move on to our items. The first thing is a proposal for the purchase of a Central Square report management software system, which I think we got a grand show coming on here. Randy, you want to tell me who's going to do what here?
Sure. Well, we have the software vendor Central Square here this evening, and the police chief and I thought it would be good for the council to just have a quick demonstration of what this software can do, and maybe some statements from our officers as to what it would enable them to do versus what their current software allows them to do. So I thought it would be easier for the presentation if maybe the council would move down to the white tables, be a little closer to the presenter. You could see the screen better, ask questions and get answers without having to shout back and forth.
Okay. Everybody ready to move?
Yes, sir.
All right. We'll reassemble at the table.
So we'll let the chief introduce the presenter. Anywhere you'd like to sit? No, at the table there. They're all in this together.
Well, okay, Chief, are we ready?
First, thank you for reconsideration of placing this on the agenda. In Spring Hope, I contacted Kerry because we were using the same here in Nashville. When I contacted Kerry, it was it's now Central Square, so technology is part of Central Square. The reason I contacted Mr. Kerry Wicks is because the system we're using is a very antiquated system. It's not a real live data system. You don't see things in real time. When officers respond to calls, if they don't put that call in this particular system that we have, then that call is not recorded. And I was looking a more efficient computer program to use that we could share information with other agencies with. And that's the key piece to this is information sharing. As you know, crime is only as good as what is reported to other agencies. If we don't know what's going on in Rocky Mount or Wilson and they frequent this area, then we're not able to do our job efficiently. The other reason I was looking at this is a time-saving model. Nash County Communications is going to Central Square. They are transforming to this program. We currently have CAD, computer-aided dispatch, with Nash County. They have Visions right now. That's the program they're operating on. When they switch to Central Square, we will not have that CAD capability. So we will not be able to see those calls for service on the computer. I've sent you the information packet. I put mostly everything in there. Mr. Lansing and I wanted Mr. Kerry Wicks to come here and he can explain more the efficiency of this system and why we're asking for it. It's an officer safety issue. Right now if we respond to calls for service, there may not be a flag on that individual or that house that he's a gang member or that person's a gang member. This allows us to do that. When we go to the jail and we make an arrest, we have access to all that information. We will have access to Nash County's jail information as well. We will have access to every call that Nash County has access to. If we don't go to this CAD system, we will not have that access any further. So, Mr. Williams.
Thank you. I appreciate your time, and I promise to be brief, be as thorough as possible in my presentation, and also answer any questions you may have. We've talked about a couple of names. I want to talk that a little bit. Our current company name is Central Square Technologies. About a year ago, there were 4 major companies that were in the public safety space that were brought together One of those was Zerker, which is my former company, and that's the solution we're going to talk about today. So when you hear Central Square, or when you see that today, that's our name. If you happen to talk to anyone at the county level, when they purchased the solution that we're talking about, it was then named Zerker. So we're one and the same. We are now Public Safety Pro Suite, powered by Zerker, and we fall under the Central Square umbrella. What I'd like to do is just kind of at a high level kind of explain from the technology perspective what we've done at the county and what infrastructure has been put in place in there that's a benefit for Nashville, as Spring Hope has already joined on, and the fire departments and EMS throughout the county. So with our technology, when you look at the system, for example, that's been in place in Nash County and in the city of Nashville and other places for many years, this is kind of what you see. So when you talk about CAD, this is 911 communications, that's dispatch. When you talk about records management, the sheriff's office has a record system, Nashville Police has one, Spring Hope has one. They're required to have that to report crime statistics to the State Bureau of Investigation and the FBI. Then there's a mobile component that the chief referenced where they have mobile connectivity in their car that will get them connected to CAD in this case. In some cases, records management. So in the county solutions they've had for years, they've had somewhat of a unified system. But in your case here in Nashville, you're connected to the county CAD, but the police department is connected to its own records management. So there's a break there, if you will, between the transfer of data. This is a traditional model that's been around in software world for a long time, and of course at the sheriff's office there's also jail. Those typically all run on separate servers, some are interconnected, some are not. In this case, if the police department here in Nashville needs information from the jail, they have to make a phone call, they have to ask for it, and if you're in the field having to make an immediate situation or decision, those are not the times that you want to have to try to make a phone call or even call on the radio to try and hunt something down. So on the right side here, we'll talk about what you get with Central Square Professional, where we have a unified database. Everything is in one central location. So with the county purchasing our CAD, the records management, jail management, and mobile, that's a unified solution that is completely integrated. So even at a 911 level, when they go to enter Kerry Wicks's name as a 911 caller, any history that's involved in the sheriff's office, whether it's a jail booking, a civil paper, or a warrant, any of that history is immediately available. So they know when they enter that what's there. We extend that to mobile in the field and also to records in jail throughout. And in this case, we don't talk about courts. North Carolina has their own AOC thing that they do, and we're working on some future integrations. But if you think about it, in the world that we provide decentralized data, any information that gets entered into the system is immediately available to everybody. One of the things that we've done extremely well as a company is not only provided this core technology to a county, but throughout the United States we have hundreds of deployments where we have multiple law enforcement agencies, fire agencies, and EMS all connected on the same system. So what the county has put in is the core system for the sheriff, 911. They're outfitting EMS for mobile for communications. They purchased one license of mobile for all the fire departments, including the city of Nashville. Now all the fire departments now have an opportunity on their own to purchase additional mobiles if they so desire. That's up to them. But the county is providing one. On the law enforcement side, what's available that Spring Hope took advantage of early on that we're talking about here is that with the county making the investment in the project initially, all the server infrastructure and all of those things that need to be done are in place and were funded and put in by the county. So Nashville Police Department has an opportunity to join that county system and only purchase the software licenses necessary for them to do their day-to-day functions. Now within our software product, there's also some differences where in today's world, for example, the records management that they have in place here allows them to collect record data. They're still printing a lot of paper, and they're putting that information into report. But there's a lot of activities within the police department that they are not automated in. So inventory control, tracking equipment, evidence control, and automating those processes are all things that are a part of what we bring to a unified system. So from an efficiency perspective, we have the opportunity to advance Nashville Police Department into the 21st century of technology and give them the tools they need to be much more efficient for not only data collection and interoperability in the agency to work smarter, but also to provide data and information that helps them make better decisions for the future. And as your community grows, the system is very scalable, and we have deployments throughout the country with literally thousands of users on it. So the other part to talk about is that with this one application, one database for one, all of those things are not only available from a sheriff's office perspective, but any information that Spring Hope may have that's going to be in the system. And if Nashville comes on, their information is available to those other jurisdictions as well. So one example I'll give you that's a very simple example, but I think very powerful, is Cherokee County, South Carolina is a customer of mine. And within the first week of going live with this system, we have the County Sheriff's Office, Gaffney Police, and Blacksburg Police. They received a phone call from a man whose neighbor was in distress and needed EMS. So as they entered his name in the system in CAD, they discovered that the sheriff had an outstanding civil paper and the Gaffney Police had a failure to appear warrant on a traffic violation. They were able to send EMS to take care of the neighbor, excuse me, and at the same time they sent a police officer over to visit with the man who called to get the paper straightened out. Historically, that would have been a missed event. Unfortunately, in today's world, here, that would be a missed event. So that's kind of a small example of how the unification of data can be helpful and be expeditious to a community. But then you also talk about the improvement of officer safety. So an example would be Kerry Wicks gets arrested Friday night by the sheriff's office and I'm violent. They put me in the detention center, they have to fight me. They put an alert on my name record, and then next Friday night, Nashville Police gets a call that involves Kerry Wicks. When they enter my name, they would automatically see an alert that tells them Kerry Wicks has previously been violent. And you don't have to ask for that, you don't have to search for it. Those are things that we present throughout the system. So we're focused on efficiency, working smarter, not harder, giving the law enforcement professionals here the tools they need and the ability to be able to report data that they can make better decisions for policing in your community, but also improving their safety by giving them immediate access to data that they would not normally have access to. The customization capabilities, we are a highly configurable system, so even though they would be operating on an environment that the sheriff's office in the county is providing, they would have their own local jurisdiction, they would control their own user rights, and they would control access to their own information. And in that, we also give you the ability to be able to automate forms and literally create an agency environment that's paperless. One of the things that's been discussed kind of entry level here is helping with code enforcement, as an example. And we do that throughout the United States in several places, where we have the ability to take a code enforcement process, build it into the custom component solution that we provide, and allow code enforcement to use that portion of the software to be able to track and report on those types of events. And then in certain situations where code enforcement may end up collaborating with law enforcement, they have immediate access to be able to share data. So just another way, but from within the police department's perspective, we give them the ability to automate the forms and take advantage of technology that they need to be able to utilize as they go forward day to day. From a report perspective, some key elements and points. The system that's in place here today, I have replaced them in several places throughout the United States. It's been a great program. It was developed about 20 years ago. It works good for putting information in, and it reports. Getting information out can be very, very difficult in that existing system. We have a very simple to use, robust reporting tool that I think is critical for any government agency today to be able to get the data out. When we put information in, it's all well and fine, but if I can't get it out, I don't have the ability to make wise decisions with resources. With our tools, not only can you pull the reports and statistics and the information that the chief would need for assignments and other things like that, but it also helps them to understand historically what types of things have occurred during different events. So the reporting tool is something that's really big. Another part that we provide as well is access to a basic crime analysis solution where you can actually post statistics if you want to a publicly available website for people in your community. So as people consider moving here to Nashville, they have the ability to be able to go to a website and log in and look, and they can see where things are happening. Now, of course, the police department has control over what that information is, but your general information about burglaries, car break-ins, or vandalisms is public information anyway. Certain things that may be sensitive in nature of certain criminal acts may not be published, but that's another thing that we provide as part of our base solution that many of our customers take advantage of. Data conversion I wanted to talk about. For those of you that have reviewed the proposal, there's a data conversion process in here. And this is something that I think is key and important to the information. So the system that's in place today has been in place for many, many years. There's thousands of records in it, and we have experience converting those records. So there's a fee for that data conversion. However, that is something that you could decide to move forward and not do. The county is doing data conversion on their records, their jail, and all their CAD. They've got 20 plus years of historical data. With the data conversion here, we would actually have the ability on the system to be able to convert all the historical data and have that immediately accessible by the police department and other agencies based on who's sharing and bringing all that information together. So all of the history of information for crime reports and all of those other things are available. And as I've said, we've got experience doing that with the existing data that they have here. Although it is a little complex because the database by design is not the most friendly thing, we have that experience in doing that to be able to bring that to the solution as well. And then when you look at the components, we have a single application, a single database. We built this whole thing from the ground up. It's not different pieces, parts put together, so it's extremely functional. With the custom forms and modules and reports, it gives the police department the capability to be highly efficient and into the future be able to change as their roles change and as needs change. Our service model. I've talked about the county has put the server infrastructure in to run this whole thing. We've got a 5-year contract in place with the county now that they're working towards going live. So 5 years from the point that they go live, we've got the support agreement in place. One of the key things that we do is we provide the servers that run this solution, but these servers are installed here. We take responsibility for managing those, monitoring those, and updating those 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. So any of the updates we do to our software, the operating system, the database software, we take full responsibility of that for the life of the contract. So with our solution, and part of the reason for our success and our growth is it's not only software that's easy to use, that provides powerful tools for public safety, but we're also putting it in a package that we fully support, so it's operational, up and running. And as we know, we were having some conversations a while ago about we have an impending possible hurricane. I'm from Pender County, right? So all we can do is prepare, right? And pray. But with that, that's another thing, is that with the servers installed here, if we lose internet connection, Nash County, Nashville, Spring Hope, they're all still functioning, right? When the internet comes back, we plug back in and take over from a support perspective. So it's one of the things that's helped us to help the public safety agencies, but that also helps agencies such as yours service their community, particularly when there's emergency situations going on. That was pretty much all I had to talk about specifically. Is there any specific questions?
I have a question.
Yes, sir.
This stuff that you're talking about, very, very, very cool. And it seems to be all Nash County oriented. Is there some way to have an application we can go over the SBI files and FBI files, these things, because crimes are all in Nash County, moved everywhere?
It is everywhere. So that was a good question. So with our company being Central Square, and I talked about the merger, many of the jurisdictions that are around you, for example, Rocky Mount, Edgecombe County, Wilson, Wake, are all on systems that are owned by Central Square. And so they will have the ability to be able to share information and look up data and information across any Central Square platform once this system goes live here in Nash County.
It's only people who've got your platform. So we couldn't hook into ICE and INS and those things.
No, sir, but we do provide, for example, inside the suite that's part of the quote, the NCIC piece, which is National Crime Information Query. They'll be able to do those queries in the office and in the car to be able to look at wanted persons, stolen guns, cars, driver's license history. Those are components that are available. Some of those systems that are available federally and statewide, they don't necessarily share well. So like state AOC is not open to sharing information with us right now. I think over time that's going to change, but we are certainly open to working with anybody who's willing to share data and information.
Go with the SBI.
The SBI only through the data components that we have. There's a system called Enlets where they post information up. We do have access to that, and that's available here as well.
Is the county scheduled to go live October 1?
They were scheduled, I'm not certain if that's still an accurate date. The original projection was October the 1st, and I know that they're tracking towards that. Yeah. I'd have to check with them and the project manager to make sure that's still correct.
Chief, if we were to get this new software, if we have to, will it feed right into the current laptops that we have in all the show cars?
Yes, sir. Part of the proposal would be the software installation on the mobile laptops, and that's included in the proposal. And I think that's $1,400 per laptop, but that's included in the proposal,
Right.
and that's the equipment cost. So as soon as they go live, if we were to get this, we would go live with it.
Yeah, the mobile computers and the workstations that are currently here will support our solution.
But now I will say that the mobile computers will have the CAD and all that information on it. However, if somebody from inside the police department, say Mr. Jones, wanted to look up information, he can actually go to the internet and have a login, and we can create him a login where he does not have to have the software to do that. So you can also operate this via internet through the server.
Yeah,
Any new laptop we got is $1,400 plus the $210 annual fee
For the officer.
for the office to go in.
Yes, sir.
Have you looked, the initial cost of putting this stuff loaded in, which I want to keep it, number, you know what I'm referring to.
Yes.
How much above and beyond the current budget that you're working with now would that impact your budget next year?
That much.
That much?
Yes, sir.
That is
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Okay.
It was proposed. I talked with Mr. Wicks, and we started this conversation when I was in Spring Hope last January, February, and we made the proposal back then. So we've been talking about this project since then. But there, no talk was ever discussed. I guess when I came here, there's nothing there. I started a process there looking an RMS system, report management system, because we had the same vendors that we got here. It was so antiquated. Officers were spending much more time completing reports than they needed to, and they could complete those reports in half the time in many other systems. That's when I made contact with Mr. Wiggs and determined that Zephyr was the best fit because of the information sharing. Most agencies in North Carolina, especially the large agencies, use a software called OSSI. That is owned by Central Square. So that is one of the software programs that we would have access to information to. And every agency in Wake County uses that. Wake County purchases, but there were a couple agencies in Wake County that purchase it themselves, but every county in Wake County, uses that program. And with the availability of that information sharing, that alone, the officer safety factor is why I started looking into
So
this.
where I understand it, the Nash County Sheriff's Office goes live October 1.
Yes, sir.
Our guys here in Nashville will be disconnected from you.
Yes, sir. Under the current
Under the
TriTech.
current- under the current-
TriTech,
yes,
right, is what they use. They will no longer be using TriTech. That's correct.
So how long will it take us to get back online, we make a decision tonight or the next, have a meeting next Tuesday?
Well, they've started the process as far as building the system, because they build the system for each particular agency according to agency specs. They already have ideas of how to build it for smaller agencies. Captain Winston is here tonight. He went to Rock Hill, South Carolina, which they're about 65,000 population, but he can tell you more about the system itself and how it operates. However, they have an idea of how to build it for smaller agencies already. So we could go based upon one of those models, but we would have to play a little bit of catch up, but we could still go live October 1.
And the plan, just so you'll know, and the pricing that we provided, that training and all of that has a plan built in currently at that price level to train in conjunction with the county and with Spring Hope in the effort that we were trying to bring costs down.
How much is the annual cost?
$57.91 for the annual cost after the additional donation. Right now, we're paying $48.11.
And that will last as long as the platform lasts, is after you fit that time?
Yes, sir. The only way it would increase, well, I mean, maybe price increase as any other software company, but is if we add more officers or more personnel.
Does this cost include integrating our data into?
Currently, yes, it does. It's listed in there.
No, I asked the chief to have some of the officers here to, if you had a question about what this could do versus what they're using right now, they could attest to that. If you would like to extend an invitation to any of them.
How's your chats?
Right here, sir.
And Sergeant Shockley has come tonight because I can attest to you what we did in Spring Hope, but this is not Spring Hope. Sergeant Shockley has been here for many years, so he can attest to what we're going to do.
Y'all make me happy. I heard 3 great questions. The first one was from Mary. He said something about the integration with data sharing from the SBI. Heard you ask something about the data and then the conversion. Just to give you a little background on what I do and how it affects the police department. Work the Criminal Investigation Division, and we work closely with the U.S. Marshal Service, the FBI, the DEA, the SBI, and the local law enforcement agencies. Matter of fact, that's where I'm coming from now. The information sharing is there. With this, it takes it to a whole new level. They don't have to pick up the phone and call sometimes, as long as we approve the request for them to actually look at our data. The data conversion, Nashville has been collecting data on traffic stops, field interviews, just random calls for service, domestics, a drunk person walking down the road. We get names, date of births, phone numbers. It may not mean anything at the time, but if Rocky Mount calls us, says they're looking someone, I guarantee you the first agents they call is Nashville PD because our data collection is so vast as it is. We've been doing it for a very long time. I don't want to bash the system we have now, but to sum it up in one good word, I would call it primitive. We do evidence collection through it. We take incident reports through it. And it has other capabilities, but we don't utilize them because they're not on a high standard at all. To give you a good example of why I think it needs to happen is, for instance, you call 911. Mayor, say you call 911 tonight and someone breaks in your home. I consider the county and us a team. And what I mean by that is we're a football team. It takes a person to hike a football, it takes a person to throw the football, and a person to catch it. You call 911, we do not get the call. Nash County Communication is across the street. It's the phone call. They ask you a ton of questions. They call it EPD. What they're doing is data collection. And by breaking and entering, it may not be as informational as other calls, but they're getting your name, they're getting your address, they're getting sometimes your phone number when you call. And all those things go into this CAD report that they're operating off now. The county is going away from it, which means the moment they hike that football after October 1st, we're no longer part of the team. We don't have access to that information unless we go up there and bother them and say, hey, can you print this off for me every single time? So that's, to me, that's very, very important. The cool part about it is the moment they start data collecting for us at the communication center, it automatically gets sent to our MDT or our computer in our car. It's putting in their name. Everything they're asking you goes in this report already, which means when we get there, we're still going to collect your information because it's like the game telephone. If I tell you something, it might not make it back around the right way. But it makes it easier because the majority of the time they're paid to do a job and they do it very well. When we get the information, we either fact check it or we add to it. We don't have to go back over what they're doing. The narrative for the call sometimes is already in there, and how the call initiated, the time, all of it's in there. If we don't go there, CAD and all that, we will have to make a trip up there every single time to talk to them to get this information. So upmost and foremost, that's important. Another part, I always say this, I work for the victim. That's my main goal. If you call me and you have a B&E to your car, or you've been hit or assaulted, that's my job. If I go there and I need this data at my fingertips, it's hard to have it when you don't have a software set up like this. The evidence, when I go to put it in, the software that Carrie explained to us is super user-friendly. We get barcodes. Right now, we're using numbers. We're using a logbook. I'm having to write it every time. Evidence is one of the most important roles in a police department. It's what gets you in there, and it's what helps you keep facts on things. Courts can recall major cases 10 years later. With barcodes and scanning mechanisms, it's user-friendly on the patrol level. If they get marijuana off the street at night, it's very user-friendly. Some of the other things just to touch on, timesheets, documentations, Miranda rights forms for the guy in the field. That's all at their fingertips on the computer. They can print it off. If I download it to a system, they can pull it up and print. But I feel as well. Yeah, it's all electronic signatures and everything. It's a stretch. From what we have right now, I'm not saying it's a bad system. We've been utilizing it well before, probably before I was born. I don't know. It's been around for a while. But part of the thing that I get working with these other agencies is we talk about our system, and I get to do reports on their system sometimes because, like you said, crime doesn't always happen in Nashville. It originates in one place and moves. I'll go ahead and tell you right now, the majority of our gangbangers sleep here but do their crime in Rocky Mountain, and if they come here and do it, we don't have that information sharing. Majority of the time I have to pick up the phone and call multiple detectives to find out who a person is. The OSSI, everyone's using it right now. There's certain data conversions where this system works. Another cool thing he mentioned is the Twitter. Twitter, they're working on Facebook, I believe. Active shooter is getting out of this world. There's crazy people everywhere. I went to a Harnett County Sheriff's Office debrief it was probably 4 years ago, and they were talking about paying for additional software to pick up keywords across social media to indicate active shooters, suspicious behavior, gang-related violent activities. This man came and told me to my face that we don't have to pay for the extra software, it's integrated in his software. If I'm looking for something that Joe Blow down the street has mentioned, majority of the time you can type it into the system and it is all there at your fingertips. Nashville's a relatively small size, which means our jurisdiction is small, but with other agencies it works really good. If they commit a crime here and go to the county and they're a county resident and the county has problems with them, but no one's picking up the phone or they don't know them, but a patrol officer has stopped to talk to them in Bailey or Cascade. The information data sharing, you type it in, it's there. Not only that, your gang-related members, your drug activity, and people who have had calls in the past with firearms but never convicted because we live in the 7th dismissal district, it's all in that computer. They dispatch the call and they let you know, hey, look, we've had previous interactions with the subject and he's had a fire. Those are things that you want to know when responding to the call on the patrol level. It gives you hints if you don't encounter and you want to take it a step further, it's there. You know in the back of your head, hey, look, I don't know he's got a gun, but there's a good chance if he's done it once, he's done it twice. And he might do it again. The selling point was for me is when the county said they're going to it. Because if you don't hike the football to the team and you have to make runs just to get information, that is, to me, that's asinine. When they get information and it goes out over the radio, it should be at our fingertips. The booking process at the jail, the moment you input it into the computer, not only are we helping us, we're helping the county. They can book them based off the information we put in a report before we ever pull up a Sally Port at the jail. It's there. And it blew my mind when he gave the presentation. I was under the presumption we were going to it anyways, but I didn't know the capabilities of the program. I'm sure there's some stuff on the back end that's holding some things up, but I cannot stress to you enough how much Nashville needs this. It needs it. We're 30 years in the past with the system we're using. The equipment inventory logs, we don't have those electronic. It's a piece of paper.
And let me touch on that. We're driving $35,000 patrol cars. Everybody's issued firearms, but we're keeping up with it on an Excel spreadsheet. This day and time, that's ridiculous. I'm gonna be honest with you. $35,000 vehicle and the money that we're spending on this, we need to have a program in order to keep up with this on the quartermaster system instead of just, and it needs to be stored on the server properly so we know who's got what and be able to track this equipment so the citizens know that we're keeping up with it.
Chief, I've got, unlike the rest of the council, I've had the advantage, the opportunity to work in what he's doing, work with JT. So, Captain, I get right. I've had the opportunity to work in their shoes, so I know how important it is. But I've got three major concerns with this entire presentation. Number one is the officer safety, and I understand how this will help them out. I don't want us to be disconnected from the sheriff's office.
Right.
With the records and stuff that they can provide. And one of the other things that, one of my priorities is cost. Those are my three concerns: cost, safety, and a disconnect from the sheriff's office.
And there would be a contract with the sheriff's office as far as if a new sheriff was elected, we would still be on board with it. So that would be no issue. And I know the cost is an issue.
It is,
But for coming in at this level, it's going to be cheaper than going in later and going to something else. And I can't really do anything about the cost. But as far as officer safety, the officer safety aspect is there because of the information shared. When an officer, say if we do use it for code enforcement, when code enforcement pulls up that address and there's an alert on that address, code enforcement will see that same alert that the police department does. And that's very important because if they're going to a house, they need to know what is there in that house when they go to. Like Sergeant Shockley said, many times if somebody is charged with a possession of a firearm, they may not be convicted. If they're not convicted, the information may not be there. If we're sharing that information with other agencies, that information is going to be there. And that red flag is going to be there. Gang members are going to be there. Narcotic dealer. Those red flags are going to be there on that information when it's put up in CAD. Without that CAD and without this system, it's not going to be there.
Larry, you're right, it's not an inexpensive system. I mean, we're talking 70,000 here. The chief has gone out and found a company that will help us ease this into our budget over a 2-year or a 3-year period. Obviously, you're paying interest with that. I think Melanie is here this evening to give us some good news from our audit, that our general fund balance has increased quite a bit from last year to this year. And I know the chief has put a lot of time into coming up with those funding options, but we have the money in the bank, and there's really no point that I can see on a purchase of $70,000 to pay interest on it when we have the ability, if the council chooses to go this way for the department, just pay for it. Now, it'll take a budget amendment to do that, but.
And Mr. Weeks did say that Central Square was split up in 2 years. I mean, they would do that with no interest, and he can speak on that.
Yeah, so one of the things that, in working with the chief on the project, and some of the things to comment about your, understanding your concerns on the financial aspects, with the training being merged with the county, there's savings there of about $15,000 roughly. And with the fact that the servers are being put in, that's thousands. That's probably 8,000 or 10,000 additional. So I think that's kind of where the chief's coming from with the presentation. But also corporately, I got agreement from my administration and executive team that we would be willing to split this over 2 years if the city of Nashville would need to do that. We could take an initial payment of half up front and then defer the second half until next year's budget if that was something that was needed. And our accounting people who deal with the auditors, right, they understand those things. But that's been approved, and we can offer that to you if it's needed, and we'd be glad to help if we can.
My concern is getting answered. Okay.
Captain, pass them name.
It's up to y'all.
I like to hear what you
I'd like to
It's up to us, but it's gonna fall back on you.
to clarify one thing. The sheriff's office don't own it. 911 Communications under Bryant Fisher and Scott Rogers are the ones that house this information, house the RMS, house everything. The sheriff's office is just the biggest contributor of information that the county has. EMS uses it, the records and tax department uses it, ESS uses it, but the sheriff's office just gets the biggest bang for the buck out
They're
of
the
it.
biggest client.
Correct. So
And we would still share information regardless of who
Right.
was elected.
now, when we do reports, the guys still have to print them off. Supervisor has to read them. If they're wrong, they have to give them a piece of paper back with corrections to be fixed. Rip the paper up, throw it away, shred it, print out a new one. It goes in a folder, it goes in a file cabinet. Right now I have roughly over like 25 file cabinets with boxes stacked on top of them from 1982 to current that he can put in our system. We could search security-wise. So now with this system and what the sheriff's office currently has, when you log onto your computer, you type your report. You find your supervisor in the drop-down box, you submit that report. They check off on it. They add notes or whatever corrections you need to fix, send it back to you, you fix it. Once it gets approved that it's been corrected, they approve it, it will go to myself or the chief, we will approve it, that everything's correct and everything's good to go, and then it will be stored on the circle. Now, the county has a vested interest to see this thing always make it. Previously being at the county for 17 years, they've had TriTech, which was visionary software for the past 20 years since Jimmy Grimes took office in '96. He actually bought it, brought it into the county. That's where it blew up from. So as far as the 5-year agreement with the county, doing the legwork before I left the sheriff's office to come here, I actually went to South Carolina. I was on the team that was bringing it to the sheriff's office to do all the legwork and groundwork and what it would be able for them to do that will do the same thing for us at a way cheaper price than what they're paying. So the biggest headache, the bill's on them, financially wise. Moving forward, the only thing we would have to do is when we added, hopefully in the future, new officers, we'd have to get new laptops, put that software on there, that would be another fee. But the records management, keeping up with equipment, keeping up with personnel, the reports, data, and every county other than Franklin County that surrounds us has the same OSSI system, visions, and everything else. Rocky Mount's eventually going to it. So when communications 911 puts that information in there, and that person got stopped in Rocky Mount or Tarboro or Roanoke Rapids, all that information from his name pops up on the computer terminal, and they see everything. Whether it dates back 20 years that they stopped this person and everything they stopped them for. If the sheriff's office or Rocky Mount, anybody had any dealings and they got a bad vibe or whatever from that person, it's a bad guy, they put notes in there that this guy's dangerous, to proceed with caution. 911 won't know that initially, but that stuff is in that information and it pops up and it makes a tone and a red noise on your computer to let you know that something's wrong with that car. So it gives you, it makes the arrows on the back of the neck stand up. So it's an officer safety point. Also, some of the programs in there is a mapping system, AVL, which is GPS. When they log on to that program, it gives them, it ain't Google Earth, it's better than Google Earth computer map. Where the house is, their current location, it has a highlighted route of the fastest route to that location, and it will track them. So if it's a new officer, or they're not from this area, and they're not 100% how to mitigate the town yet, that helps them, it tells them how to get there. Also, it provides us, if we need to help another agency, because they've called for help, it shows us how to get to them just as fast and go there too.
Is that a cell tower location?
Where we have mobile hotspots in our cars, it's internet. So once we log on, all that data comes from there, and it's through Verizon. We currently just switched over to Verizon's public safety network. So if there's a storm or anything national disaster, the law enforcement and fire department of Nashville has priority that our service won't get knocked out or cut out from Verizon.
Thank you very much. No comments? Let's move on. Thank you for your time.
Thank y'all. Thank you.
Dismissal of the last today.
Yes, it was.
Pick up pretty good, Lo.
Seems to be the witching hour. Okay, thank you very much, everybody. Council have comments?
Yes, Mayor, I think it's a very good program that's been presented well. And as a former business owner dealing with computers and software, I'm well familiar with it. Cheap is not good. So with the program he's offered and all the things that he has said based on our police officers, I make a motion that the town of Nashville move forward with purchasing the system.
You want to include a budget amendment in that also,
Yes, sir.
when it comes to us?
Yes,
Okay.
sir.
All right, whatever that takes. Okay, is there a second?
I second.
There's a motion and a second. We approve the project that's been mentioned to us and also the budget amendment when it comes to us. Is there any discussion? There being none, all in favor indicate so by saying yes.
Yes.
Opposed, no. It's done. Mr. Manager, you do what you need to do.
Thank you.
Okay. The next item is a proposal for our second fire station, which if you read the news, the Rocky Mountain Telegram yesterday, you probably learned everything we know. But let me find my place here. I've lost all my notes. There we go. The situation has come to us that we're facing the prospect of building another fire station somewhere on the east side of town to get into our fire district. This was mentioned some years back when we had the same problem, when it looked like we were going to have to go out to that way to preserve our insurance rates. But as it turned out, at that point in time, it appeared that Rocky Mountain was going to annex all that area out there. Wouldn't be a problem for us anymore. But that didn't come to pass, so now it's come back to haunt us again. And we've got, what you've read in your documents, the prices of all these things. Looked about like $1 million worth of building, and then a lot of other related courses. We've got a person out there who wants to give us land depending on getting the road built, which is more talk and more discussion. And I tried to get some thoughts together this afternoon for a plan for us to discuss tonight about what we would need to do to look at this thing logically. Everything's hanging on getting the road built. And the first thing we need to do is talk to our MPO rep about getting this thing into the STIP plan for projects in the future. And that's about a 3-year project, as I understand. Then we start building and working on funds and working on the water sewer connections. All these things have to work out. But the question, though, comes with the actual road building situation, or find another location. So that's up for debate as we move forward. And I'm open for anything, because the issue now is in the time that it takes to get through town to get to the east side of town where all the buildings going on. If we get anywhere on the east side of town, then the response time of driving through town has now been reduced by 5 minutes, Chief, 4 minutes. So that's what we're looking at. So it doesn't matter exactly where we are on the east side, as long as we don't have to go through downtown, somewhere over there. Okay, with all that said and done, the first issue we've got to talk about is, can we get the road built? If the road built, then we start talking about finances. Of course, we can work the money. That's no problem with that, through one form or another. Okay, all this said and done, I'd like to ask our manager, you got comments on this thing?
Sure. You know, what you had in the packet as far as a site for the second fire station is just a proposed site. You know, that site could also be up along Oak Level Road too. We could build a station there and then
Right.
place it such that when the road does come through, and hopefully it will, it would already be in position. We could still take advantage of the gift of the free land, provided we could get some assurance to that donor that this road is going to be a done deal at some point, or some commitment from the DOT that they will actually do that. When the chief and I were looking at the locations for this, we thought probably up along the railroad's property would be the least attractive for any other use, because it's along the railroad track. Frontage along Oak Level Road might be a little more desirable property for a developer or the seller, but I think we could work it either way. Chief, I don't know if you have comments on moving the station or having the station along Oak Level Road versus where we have it proposed on the drawing.
We can work with it either way, but the main thing we were looking at is if we are able to move it up toward the railroad, then we have more access to Eastern Avenue. And when I started looking, I met with DOT, you know, with projection of going to a full lane road on Eastern Avenue, going all the way to Rocky Mountain. They're projecting a traffic study, right now there's 9,700 cars a day that come down Eastern Avenue into Nashville. There's 11,000 cars that come off that exit right there at Red Oak Road and come into Nashville a day, on an average. They're projecting in 2030 to having somewhere close to 20,000 cars a day coming into Nashville. So when I'm looking at that, looking at potential, you know, you gotta look at the road, you gotta look at all the other parts that are coming along that side. If we were able to put it on the railroad track side, yes, it would be more accessible for us to get to the other side. But if I had to work on that double road, we could. So that is one of those things we'll work around. Road, once the road is built, we can shoot right back up the road. We can get to, just another example of it. The DOT didn't realize that they were figuring around 1,000 cars a day went up North Clarendon. They did a 24-hour study out there, it's 2,900 cars going up that road a day. So there's more traffic over there, but that is one reason why when we looked at it, we said that if we can get the road put in, we can put the station on that road, close to the railroad track, that gives us more capabilities of going both ways. It makes it a whole lot more easier access. It makes us have a quicker response to that side. You would notice one of the sheets that you have in that I've given you shows the highlighted areas. One of them has got 2 red dots on that side. One of them is Walmart. Most people don't realize we run more medical calls at Walmart than we do at the nursing home across the road. And that's what I look at when we look at all these numbers. All this stuff is data that we keep. Chief Copper does a good job of keeping up with all this and keeping the data up. It gives me reports every month on where we're at and what we're doing and what we're seeing. We actually went to the county pulled maps. We've got a map that shows how much one district will cover by moving to that side of the district with one station and covering that side. So we're looking at that insurance rate and being able to do what we need to do on that side. So,
Chief,
yes, sir.
because of the cost that we'll have to get into as far as getting the road put in there and the land swap or whatever, if that proves to not be a working plan for us, have you considered another site for a station?
Well, when you look at the spread and you go to 1.5 miles out, if we are somewhere right there, and I still believe we could work it out with the land on an O-level road close to the Woodfield subdivision, you go right along there, that is the primary spot to be somewhere in that general area. That way we get more coverage. We can cover more of our district the way we need to. And I'll give you an example. We collect fire tax money off of parts of Baxter Road and areas over that way that we cannot cover insurance-wise because we're too far out with our station now. So we'll have coverage for all the areas in our district that we're supposed to be covering insurance-wise that we're collecting tax bases.
Is this the Bachelor Roads over by Barnhill Church Road?
Yes, sir. Barnes Hill Church Road, you know, there's projected 32 houses,
Yep.
another 32 houses going in there. That is ours to take care of. Right now, those houses are gonna be close on that borderline of being without it, that 5-mile district where they, really and truly, they wouldn't have any insurance coverage. They could have a higher insurance rating because we can't get there in that 5-mile range. This takes care of that issue.
Okay. Well, since we're still in the negotiations then, I just heard a good idea. Let's see if we can negotiate with the landowner to acquire the corner property. That way we can go ahead and do what we need to do and wait for the road to come to us.
That's entirely up to you.
That's all
Y'all wanna
discussion.
do it.
If he wants to do that, fine. If not, we'll regroup again. Because we don't have to make this decision tonight, but
No.
it's coming on down the road.
I guess I've put it out to the council. You know, the chief has documented the need. We've known the need. We have some property that we can acquire fairly reasonable. You know, how we get from point A to point B, obviously, we don't have all the details for that here this evening. But, you know, if the council is agreeable to pursuing a second fire station, we'll certainly gather all that information and bring it back so that you can have clear choices and know what the costs. Again, the costs are just projections that Chris and I, fire chief, put together. You know, if you decide to go forward with this, because of the dollar amount of the project and we will have to do, we'll have to acquire an architect for this and do a selection process on that, and then negotiate with them what the fees would be to design this and oversee the construction of it. They would in turn come up with a detailed cost estimate on it, and at that time you would know the likelihood of the true cost.
Well,
My understanding is that the water and sewer does not go all the way out to that proposed road.
that's
So
correct.
that would be a $500,000 extension, right?
There's water across the street, across Oak Level Road, but going to the railroad, we have to pull it
You'd have to
several
pull it either
hundred
from,
feet. Yeah.
from the doctor's office over there this way,
What is,
or from Oak Level Road back to.
there's one on Oak Level Road going
Back.
down to the Oak Level Cafe,
Right.
that corner.
It's
We have to
not,
pull it across
pull it
that
from
road.
it's not really a matter of whether we want to move forward with one or
It's a
not.
matter we
We're
got
gonna
to.
have to move
That's
forward with
right.
one.
Okay.
It's not something we can decide that
Well, let's,
we might do.
well, since there's so many things out there floating around,
They are.
let us make, I'd entertain a motion to empower the manager to go forward to flesh out a plan with this, and we'll talk about it and bring it back to us later.
Motion made.
Second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded. We empower the manager to flesh out a plan and bring it back to us when he's got it together. Is there discussion?
I second it.
Any
There's been a second.
things you'd like to see? Obviously, the timing of the road, if we can get DOT funding and
Yeah, all this stuff's got to come
get it put
together.
in there and put
Yeah.
together a time frame. Is there anything else you'd like to see in
Yeah,
that?
Well,
because it's a time-sensitive matter, I think the first thing we need to do is see if we can get that property.
Yeah, I'd kind of like to put this thing in a time frame that for your project, like 60 days to get something back to us. That'll give you time to negotiate with the property owners to see whether we get that corner property.
Get that
If
property.
they don't, then we got to work on other issues,
Right.
and other decisions.
Okay.
But
But it
that's all.
sounds like if we can get funding for that road, that's the best option, or
That's
we're
something
not
else
even talking about
something
water.
else we got to work through the MPO,
Right.
and that's got to be done with
So
some
having-
type of push.
Having talked with the DOT engineer about that, it didn't sound like it was impossible, but you know, it'll take
Yeah.
time.
Yeah, well, see, our urgent is more urgent than that urgent, than that road.
True.
And if we can get this corner, we can wait for the road to come to us, it doesn't matter then.
Right.
And then the landowner will get his thing, the protection will be everything will be good. And we got a motion and a second on the floor that we, empower the manager to move forward with a plan. And there's been discussion. Okay, all in favor will say yes,
Yes.
all opposed will say no. Okay, Mr. Manager, you got work to do. You got 60 days to let us know something. Just give us a report. If we have to move further on that, we do that too, but we gotta do that. Okay, we're down to council comments. Before we move further, I'd like to introduce our new, Public Utilities Director, whom I can't see because he's behind this pole, but I understand he's out there. Lee Brown,
Lovely.
if you have any trouble seeing him, he'll stand up.
He's standing.
Oh, he's standing? I thought he was standing on a
Lee.
chair.
Come on, Lee.
Lee, you got
Okay.
anything you'd like to say
Lee.
to the council?
Lee, we got words for us?
Well, I'm enjoying my first council meeting, so thank you. And, you know, just glad and thankful for the opportunity and looking to, serve the community in my role. Glad to be here. It's been a long time trying to get out this way, and so now that it's here, we're gonna give it 100% and make it work.
Good. And if you need any help from any of us, let us know.
And I appreciate that.
Okay. Thank you very much. Appreciate you being with us. Okay, with all that said and done, we'll move forward. Mr. Taylor, you have comments?
I think I probably said enough tonight.
Okay.
That's
Other,
it.
other Mr. Taylor?
Yes, Mayor, I do have a comment, something I need to share with the rest of the council, is I had a neighbor of mine on Birchwood this afternoon to come to me, and he is really upset. He and some other neighbors are upset because of the geese population,
Oh, yeah.
and he's asked for us to see what we can do to try to help alleviate some of the problem. And I told him I would mention it tonight at the agenda meeting, and so everybody be a little aware of it, because he may decide to come, he and some of them may decide to come next week to the regular meeting
Well-
and speak about it.
Well, we can't shoot them, unfortunately. Mike could net them. If you're looking for someone, you got something about the geese.
Well,
on you?
Rocky Mount, I will tell you this, you may not remember it, you might. Rocky Mount had an issue with this at City Lake. And they put up signs, can't feed them anymore, and they did something else, and I'm not sure what it was, but they did eliminate some of the problems they had, because they had almost as serious issue as we do. As a matter of fact, the pond at Birchwood, if you walk around the edge of it and look, it's full of feathers and the other droppings
Right.
that's in the water.
That's that same flock stay in my backyard. And what they're eating out there is called goose grass. It's got seed in it that they graze on, and it's all over the golf course.
We have a neighbor who's feeding them also
Well, now-
twice a day.
That's an aggravation too.
And at one time, there were 9 of them I counted 85 of them now.
Could we talk with our wildlife representatives here and see if there's some kind of way they can net them and trap them and carry them off somewhere?
Oh, you bet.
I mentioned Captain Winston earlier, and he said he was gonna get with animal control.
Yeah, don't shoot them though.
You can't do that. Well, you say you got a neighbor feed him, let's catch them all and take them to his house.
You finished that? Good.
That's it, I'm through.
This isn't?
I'm done.
Gee, that's hard to follow.
Don't slip on it.
Tonight, we've, their wants and their needs. We've heard tonight needs. We need a firehouse, right, Chris? That's what we always call it, the firehouse. And we obviously need some software. My understanding is the software is about 15 years old. Is that right, Anthony? Okay. So it's time. Their needs.
Yep.
And what were you gonna tell us about fund balance?
We just have preliminarily heard that the audit is looking very good, and we will know more in the next 2 to 3 weeks.
But you don't have any figures?
They're not official yet.
Okay, are we looking for a new finance director?
Yes, we had 2 interviews today, so we got a few more applications, so we're well on the way of selecting one.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Dr. Burns?
I just wanted to thank the police department for their presentation tonight. In reading what was put together, it was really concerning to me that the safety of our officers was not where it should be. That the current program that we're using has not been updated in 15 years, and that we might have been disconnected from the sheriff's department. So I'm glad that we had those figures in front of us. I'm glad that we talked about it. I'm glad we made a decision. And I think it'll give us many more things that we can use. And so thank you to everyone. And as Louise said, we're talking about needs. So it's a lot of money. It's a little scary to discuss, but these are needs. So that's it.
As far as needs are concerned, needs for municipalities will increase forever. As the population increases, as cost increase, inflation goes forward, these things will happen all the time because there's no end to it. But we have to get ready for it now and just plan ahead. That's what our capital program's about, moving forward. Okay, all that said and done, thank everybody for coming. Appreciate you being here. And we'll move on. We'll have our regular meeting next Tuesday night. Please be sure to come to that. And the chair will now entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. We adjourn. Is there any discussion? There being none, all in favor indicate so by saying yes.
Yes.
Opposed, no. Accordingly, we're adjourned.